shield if ejection was necessary. In the other, the canopy was hinged on the side and simply blew away during ejection. The radar scope was positioned to the center of the instrument panel and had rubber shielding so the pilot could see it in sunlight. The first generation MiG-21s were equipped only to fly daylight clear air interceptions. The second generation was more sophisticated, equipped with radar in the intake spike and able to intercept at night and in poor weather. The MiG-21 was a major step forward for pilots from squadrons of MiG-15s and 17s. They were confronted with a genuine high-altitude, high-speed aircraft capable of flying at twice the speed of sound and reaching altitudes over 60,000 feet. It was 3 times as fast as anything in their experience. The two-seater MiG-21 UTI trainer helped them to make this transition. It also carried 2 Soviet women pilots to major world records. Natalia Prokhanova set an absolute women's world altitude record of 79,842 feet. Lydia Zaitseva established a sustained horizontal altitude record of 62,400 feet. This MiG-21 UTI is far away from its original home. It flies out of Burlington, Vermont in the USA. Its owner and pilot, Dean Martin, is a MiG collector. The 21 UTI was the first Soviet jet fighter trainer since the MiG-15. The 15 UTI trained pilots for both the MiG-17 and the MiG-19. The MiG-21, with its vastly extended flight envelope, required much more demanding preparation. Fighter pilot trainees graduated from the Czech L-29 intermediate trainer onto the MiG-21 UTI. In practice, it was not such a daunting transition. The MiG was considered to have handling qualities well in the reach of a 20-year-old cadet of a fighter pilot school. It was known as a forgiving aircraft, but was still demanding. The wing was set up for high-speed flying, and landings could be difficult. Four basic UTIs were produced, each one a conversion of the 4 generations of the MiG-21 fighter. Many detailed variations on those 4 models followed. Some were manufactured outside the Soviet Union, in Czechoslovakia, India, and China. Each model of the UTI trainer has the same Tumansky jet engine as its corresponding fighter version. The jet nozzle has controllable vents. They vary in cross-section according to the power setting to give the best possible gas flow from the engine. One of the main problems facing MiG designers in developing the UTI was getting the high-speed ejection sequence just right. Pilot and instructor may need to eject at speeds beyond Mach 2, and the timing of ejection between the 2 cockpits is critical if they're to have any chance of surviving. All Russian aircraft have instrumentation that reads in meters rather than feet, and kilometers per hour rather than knots, which can be confusing to American pilots. And Western aircraft have an artificial horizon which shows the horizon relative to the pilot's seat, but Russian aircraft have an attitude indicator which shows the attitude of the aircraft from the point of view of the ground. which is even more confusing. The MiG-21's performance, though, speaks all languages.
Check 210, buddy.
The second seat in the UTI reduced fuel tank space, and an external fuel tank below the fuselage became standard. Even with the external fuel tank, the range of the two-seater is about 400 miles less than a standard fighter version. Otherwise, performance, speed, altitude, and maneuverability is similar. Sometimes external tanks on Russian aircraft are jettisoned in flight in designated areas. And these tanks are highly prized by the owners of dachas, country holiday cottages. They mount them on top of small cubicles in their backyards and use them as water tanks for their showers. MiG-21s come in fast. Their landing speed is around 170 miles an hour. The landing run is close to 4,000 feet, but the use of a drag chute reduces that by more than half.
Volga 3 Delta Mike, left close traffic. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your help today.
There is no doubt that the MiG-21 performs and handles well. For 2 decades, it evolved effectively enough to keep it near the top of the international fighter aircraft tree. It has no basic handling vices. It can be pushed to its limits of performance without risk of a major mishap. Its combination of delta wing and tail makes it resistant to stalling. The design of the nose intake is so efficient that air is supplied smoothly to the engine, even under extreme conditions. It is simple, highly reliable, and could be produced in great numbers, all of which were prime requirements of the Soviet Air Force. It wasn't long after the MiG-21 went into service that the term MiG diplomacy was coined. Many small MiG-21 units were sold to newly independent or post-revolutionary countries in the 60s and 70s. They were supplied on very favorable terms. The price was heavily subsidized by the Soviets, and payment could be made in the currency of the purchasing country. Whether these aircraft ever saw service was another question. Sometimes changed political relationships with the Soviet Union caused the supply of spare parts to stop, and the MiGs would sit on the ground indefinitely. When the MiG-21 entered service in 1959, its direct Western contemporaries were the American Lockheed F-104 and the French Dassault Mirage. There's no doubt that the MiG was much more maneuverable than both of them. The MiG's long service life brought it into direct comparison with a new generation of lightweight single-engine fighters, the design of which it in some ways influenced.